Hello and welcome back to Lean on Success, where process improvement is self-improvement. My name is Ben. I'm a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, and I have brought Sarah Kaplan back on the show. How you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, for those who may not have seen the last video that we did together, why don't you remind a little bit everyone of what you do and kind of how you operate in the financial space?
Hit the like button and please subscribe so my daddy can get me new toys. Thanks.
Okay, so uh, once again, my name is Sarah Kaplan. I am the managing partner and owner of Kaplan Financial Group and Kaplan Benefits Group. We are an independent financial planning, investment advisory, insurance brokerage, and consulting firm in the Washington, D.C. metro area. We serve about 200 families and 80 businesses in the DC metro area and across the country, and a handful of folks internationally. My background is that I am a certified financial planner. I have the certified financial planner designation. I also am an accredited investment fiduciary, which means that I have a legal obligation to give investment advice that's prudent and appropriate outside of any regulatory requirement, outside of the CFP. And then I also have my certificate in retirement planning from the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. All that to say, I have done all of my studying, credentialing, and work in my career in personal financial planning.
Gotcha. Yeah, that is quite the resume. And this is why I come to you when it comes to personal money matters, because you know way more than I do.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, we had a great conversation last time, kind of walking through, dumb things people do during recessions. And you gave out some really key takeaways and nuggets. I call them nuggets that you provided that says, well, do this instead of that. One of the things that you talked about was when you're walking people through their personal finances, you talk about them being aware of how much they spend. And you said something interesting. It hit me kind of weird. You said, this isn't about a budget. It isn't punitive. Can you explain more about like what you mean by that?
Yeah. So of course, and I saw you kind of raise your eyebrow there for a moment. I don't, last time you asked if I was triggered, and I was curious if that triggered you in some way, but just to just to kind of get it out there. So most of the time when we're working with clients, a full financial plan is a part of the process. And by financial plan, I mean evaluating their goals, their objectives, their net worth, their cash flow, their expenses, and pulling it all together to make sure that they're on track to meet their goals. Without an inventory of expenses, we're stuck in the mud. And
Gotcha.
I often hear clients say, yeah, I know I need a budget. And what I have come to understand over my 20 years in business, working in the financial planning industry, is that people have a very emotional reaction to the word budget. And I think you can kind of use the analogy of diet. People see budget kind of like a diet. So let's say you're like me and you've had a couple kids and you've gotten to a certain age and you've decided that you can no longer do the things you did in years past and still maintain a certain physical appearance that you want, and you want to have a healthier lifestyle. A lot of people would say, I need to go on a diet. And they go on a crash diet, let's say, a juice cleanse, a crash diet, something really restrictive. And what ends up happening when you go on a crash diet? Most of the time, you lose a lot of weight really quickly, but then it comes right back when you stop. And the reason is that diet or that restriction was really unrealistic. And so very often when people think about a budget, they think about this kind of unrealistic restriction of their finances and their expenses. And so my point is, if you're trying to make a positive change in your life with your diet and your lifestyle, what I've been encouraged to do by the professionals that I've encountered is make small steps every day toward a healthier lifestyle, which includes incorporating healthier foods into what you eat, so that when you slip up or you have a cookie, and I do have cookies occasionally, I am known to have a cookie here and there, you don't feel like, oh, well, we might as well throw the whole thing out because I had a cookie and now my whole diet is ruined. And so I'm just not even going to try anymore. And the idea is that with tracking your expenses, it's just giving you information. It's helping you inform yourself about your standards and your habits and giving you a framework to then make decisions with, right? And it's all about choices. It's not about anything punitive or trying to restrict you in some way. It's, can you meet your goals based on how you spend? And so if you overspend outside of your budget, you don't just like throw your arms up and go, this isn't working. You can take a look at it and just feel more well-informed about what decisions you might want to make moving forward.
Gotcha. That is so insightful to look at budgeting like dieting, because I do think people have an emotional connection and treat them very much the same way. I was a little triggered when you talked about budget last time. You picked up on that. That was very astute of you. It wasn't offensive in any way. It's just a very unusual thing to hear from a financial advice standpoint. And also, I'm a numbers person, so I live in spreadsheets. I do laps in spreadsheets all the time. And so I find it fun to put all the numbers down in a nice little spreadsheet and do my budget and figure out this category, that category. I find joy from doing that.
Yeah, you're unusual.
Yeah, I'm weird.
Most people don't like that. Most of our clients, I would say 80% of the people we work with when we first start working with them have no idea what they spend. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how much they make or how little they make. They have no idea how much they spend.
Yep.
The process of getting their arms around their expenses feels very almost phobic. Like they're afraid of what they're going to find out. They don't like the process. They don't like looking at it. They don't like knowing about it. And they definitely don't like the idea that what they do and what they track can have a direct correlation with whether or not they can achieve their goals. It's a very emotional thing for people to have to be reflective and think about the choices that they make. And, my whole thing is, look, you give 100 people $100 and they spend it 100 different ways. Mm-hmm. This, it's not my job to make a value judgment about how you spend your money. If you need Starbucks every day, let's make that a part of your plan, as long as you understand that it might take you a little bit longer to get toward your goals, or you might have to give something else up.
Gotcha. It's interesting that what you said reminds me of the movie The Big Short. And there were the two guys that had like the garage band hedge fund. They had started with a bunch of money pooled together, and they grew like $100,000 of cash that they had raised into like $10 million or something like that. And one of the things they talked about was the way that they made all the money was that they would invest in things that were part of extreme circumstances. So, and one of the things that they said was, people don't like to think about terrible things happening, so they tend to underestimate the probability of those things occurring. And when we bet against that assumption or that mindset, we're able to make a lot of money when those things actually do pay off. So what you said kind of resonated with me, because I see a lot of that in my relationship. So whereas I'm a numbers person and I do like to have transparency and lay everything out and track out a plan, my wife has a very opposite reaction when we start talking about our expenses. She gets stressed out when we just talk about household bills. Okay, we have this bill coming, this bill's due, and this is happening. And whenever we have a budget discussion, it always turns to an argument.
Well, because she assumes that you're assigning some kind of a value judgment, maybe on a decision she made about spending. And all you're trying to do is say, how did we do versus what we wanted to do, maybe even on a macro or global level, and help that inform your decision moving forward. You weren't trying to make it an emotional conversation, but for some people, money is deeply personal. We're not taught how to talk about money, right? I mean, most of us didn't talk about money across the dinner table growing up. I did. I'm the daughter of a financial planner, but I've been talking about it for a very long time, but not everybody does. And it can be very emotional. And, tracking expenses should be something that, it doesn't have that kind of anxiety or fear or emotion or stress tied to it. But sometimes, especially partners, aren't aware that it's creating this stress response for their partner. And you maybe need to think about ways to change your language so that it's not about, well, we didn't do really well here this month, or we spent too much this month, or, maybe changing the language to say, is this something that we're going to continue to do? And do we need to adjust our goals? Or is this something that we want to incorporate into our lifestyle on an ongoing basis, which means that we need to adjust somewhere else? And so changing it from like a negative connotation to like a we're in this together, teamwork, do we need to come together and think about something differently moving forward so that, there's more of a team effort as opposed to, we bad,
Right.
spend less good.
Right. Yeah, I've learned that the hard way with my wife. We've had a lot of different iterations of how we've approached money. And to your point, when she started to feel that she was being put into a box of how much money she could spend on something, she never really reacted well to that. And the reason is because she has an emotional attachment to the ability to do spontaneous purchases for things that she deems to be valuable in the moment. And I have an emotional attachment to understanding how every dollar I spend on item A is a dollar I don't have to spend on item B, which I deem to be more important. So where she has value in having flexibility to respond to spontaneity, I have value more in locking down certain items or locking down a certain buffer of money in order to contribute to something longer term. So we've had to go through a few iterations of how we talk about money and how we move forward with allocating expenses to certain things to accommodate and meet in the middle. And I would say that we're probably not done iterating, especially because the iterations ebb and flow as our incomes ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And we've had significant disruptions in our income over the years. The amount that we earn has changed drastically for better or for worse. And so that has added another wrinkle. And because our lives have changed so much, we're probably going to iterate again at some point and say, okay, we're at this point in our life that's different than we've been before. And now we've got to approach our money a little bit differently. So that really resonated with me when you talk about value judgments and things of that nature. So yeah, that's just really insightful. I think it's important for my viewers to understand that you have to be, it's really about creating awareness on what you're spending and knowing that, okay, if you're spending money on this, you don't have money for that, and you won't be ready for these things if you're not making the right preparations. So I think that's really important.
But it's all choices, right? It's not that you won't be able to do the things you want to do. You just may be, you don't want to be so restrictive. And, I have clients who want to retire at 55 and that's their focus, 55 full stop done, right? I have clients who say, I really enjoy what I do. I would rather less restrictive lifestyle and retire later because it's better for my lifestyle. I enjoy working. I enjoy spending. I enjoy going on nice vacations. It's all about choices. And this is deeply personal stuff, right? This is like seriously personal. I've had some very, very personal conversations with clients in our conference room. My brother is a PhD clinical psychologist, and he says that if people are talking to us about money, the only thing left is sex. Like it is deeply personal and it's emotional and, like you say, stressful. So everyone, I try to encourage everyone, like, look, there's no judgment here, right? It's about you understanding where you are and where you want to be and the choices that you are willing to make to get from A to B. And it's not about what I want, it's about what you want. And Let's figure out a way for all of us to get there together in a timetable that you're comfortable with.